Oops. Copy image, open image in new tab.
Yeah. Put it in a tab there.
There you go. I wonder if that's like actually real too.
I think it is actually.
Do you think that's real?
I think I remember the story.
Some Planet Fitness guy. He's like, I'm just gonna do it. Because he paid money to get on stage like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is comical alone. I think we are
Live.
rolling.
Rolling.
Okay.
Rolling.
Cool. There we go.
What up?
What's up, guys? Welcome back. John and I today we're going to discuss hypertrophy, all things hypertrophy, which is, building muscle tissue. That's a kind of
Gaining mass.
Gaining mass.
Getting huge.
And so we'll just kick it right off. What do you think is the number one important thing important for hypertrophy?
I mean, well, there's two. Well, from like are we talking training, nutrition, or just all encompassing?
What's the number one thing?
Well, I think it would be tied with adequate food intake, just overall calories, and then also total volume, and just, I guess, just an overarching theme of volume.
Okay. I'm going to walk it back one further.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to say adherence.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Like anything else?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're setting
if I take 2 hours to just decide this is the best program for this person based on their links and based on their experience and all that kind of stuff, and they don't do it,
it doesn't matter.
You can't complain. It's just like if you complain about who's president but you didn't vote. Mm-hmm. No right. So for those that are just listening in, we do have a funny meme up. It is two bodybuilders. I think these guys are natty as well. This is a natural show. And then we have one guy, well, they're all natty, but one guy looks like he's never lifted a day in his life. It's very funny. I like looking at this one. This is great. So we're generally going to keep a meme up, I think, for everybody that's tuning in, and then we'll find other funny things. So adherence, you build a program, you get a nutrition protocol that you're going to follow that's going to lead you to gains. That's kind of the start for everything. Anything in life, really. Mm-hmm. If you want to be successful, you have to show up.
Yeah.
So
show up consistently.
So, and from there, we talk about what kind of progression scheme you're going to use. Really, let's just start if you're a total novice and you just get in the gym.
Yep.
So we're going to talk to those people. If you've never lifted in your life and you're young or you're old, whatever, and you wanted to get into the gym and you want let's say just you want to look bigger. Generally it's biceps. I always hear about biceps and chest from people.
It's never back.
Can I have a huge back?
It's never your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads.
I think it evolves into that.
Yeah, it eventually gets you.
Yeah, because I'll be watching TV and my legs are up on my couch and I'm those quads need to be thicker. But damn, how big do my calves get when they're spread out like that, and I'm getting smushed?
Right, yeah. So they look like this all the time. What the heck?
And also, if you guys... those of you just listening, you just finished a workout, right?
I did, yeah.
So John is totally going for the full anabolic stimulus here, and he is smashing white rice, which he's actually half a bowl in.
Yeah,
and John record time. Did you put anything on it?
No, this is just a little salt. That's it.
Wow.
I mean, usually I mix everything together, whatever protein I have and everything all together, but. Today I was finishing my workout just as you were getting here, so it was, as I was also making rice on rest sets, so I was pounding food, pounding the protein portion of the meal, and then waiting for the rice to get done in that time. So now it's just the rice, plain rice. Love it. But I love rice. I eat it like this all the time.
Oh yeah, rice is delicious. So total novice. Number one thing, I would say again, pick how many days you're gonna work out.
Yep.
Just pick, because if you're a total novice,
you can basically do anything.
Here's the beauty: whatever you throw against the wall,
it's gonna work.
And at least, what would you say, for 6 months? It's the golden period.
Yeah,
I've seen people go 2 years.
I think it really depends on your starting point as far as how much muscle mass you are actually starting with, and genetically where you're coming from. If you're a really really skinny, lean person. like I think you're gonna stretch that out a little bit more than if you're just like a bigger guy to begin with.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, it's that first period, man, is like anything you do, literally anything you do, like you will get bigger and stronger with.
Yeah, and it's a sweet time. So even if you're like, again, if you're a total novice and you're overweight, and you still want bigger muscles, I would still say start weight training.
100%.
Don't worry about the cardio. Well, you can do some cardio, but I would focus on the weight training because weight training to me changes your shape.
Yep.
Cardio kind of makes you a smaller shape than what you currently are.
Yep. And just from like if you are wanting to lose weight as well as like getting bigger muscles and like kind of the bigger arms or whatever that goal is, like by doing that, you're going to increase your metabolic rate, right? By increasing lean mass, right? And especially if you've never done any strength training before, and like you're in the kind of newbie gain period, like you're going to see a big increase from that.
And some people that are genetically gifted, their metabolic rate is just naturally going to be higher.
Yep.
And so
they're generally going to be leaner.
They're generally going to be leaner. But some people, I've heard of people like Alberto Nunez, I think is like 17 calories per pound or something like that, where the average person's probably 7. So you're going to have outliers too. But again, if you're a novice, don't worry about any of that shit. Just start working out. I would say 3 days a week, full body.
Yep. I agree.
You can learn how to deadlift and squat, and I would really focus that time on learning how to do those movements properly, rather than just going as heavy as possible, seeing what your PR is. Because
don't go in and like if you like get some program from like bodybuilding.com or like somebody and it's like based off percentages. Don't go in like when you've never done it before and like, okay, I got to figure out what these percentages are, what I'm gonna work with. So like, let's max out on week 1. Like, don't do that.
If you have the ability to check your ego before you walk into the gym day 1, you are going to be so much further ahead than somebody in a year that couldn't do that. Even though the weight might not show it, long term down the road, you're setting your foundation so well.
Exactly.
You're curating something.
And I think it's important, like, get around people who are experienced and know what they're doing. I mean, it can be kind of hard to tell when you really don't know.
Right.
But I think that's very important too, whether it's just like not even hiring a trainer, but like if it's just like watching videos of like, technique things and like, form breakdowns from like reputable sources. Maybe it's like you've got a buddy that's been training for his whole life, right? Ask him, even if you're not training with him, ask him for help, right? Or if you know somebody who's a trainer, like ask them, maybe they can guide you to a good resource.
And I'm just gonna say this: I think minimum wage is like $9 an hour right now, right? Something like that.
Something like that. I don't know.
If you can find a trainer that you can even like work with for a half hour, or an hour, and just go over the basics for the lifts, that is money well spent.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've had people like that, like they've come to me and they're like, listen, like straight up, I can't afford to regularly train with you. But could I pay for a few sessions? And like, I don't want to do like a full workout, but I want you to like take me through all the main movements. Like, let's work on the squats, the deadlifts, the pushes, the pulls, all these things, they come with a list, maybe like 8 movements. They're like, can you help me do these movements? I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, I don't care that you're not going to be a long-term client. Maybe you will down the road, but like right now, like if you really can't afford it and this is what you want, I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to help you set you up for success, right? So that's a great point. Like even if it's a half-hour session, if that's all you can afford, like do it.
Yeah, and I think again, as speaking to a novice, if you can't hire a coach, there are definitely reputable sources online. I think Untamed Strength has good tutorials on the big lifts. I'm sure you can find Eric Helms on YouTube doing some kind of breakdown. Who do you like?
I remember like kind of when I was starting out, Chad Wesley Smith was really good from Juggernaut Strength Systems. He had a lot of good stuff out at the time. The folks you mentioned there. Another one that wasn't around then, but it is now, and it's like really easy to digest, is Squat University on Instagram. I think he's a physical therapist and Olympic lifter or something like that. But he posts really good, just like basic. I mean, some of it's more in depth, but a lot of like basic information, like do this on your squat, don't do this. What happened? Like if this is happening, do this.
Yeah.
So there's good things, and that's just like on Instagram. That's not even like YouTube or that realm.
And if you can't find anybody, and I know we're still in the pandemic in Michigan, and
like the only state here
we're the
in
only
the United
state.
States.
Yeah. So if you can't find anybody, John and I are on Instagram.
Yes.
And we do virtual stuff.
Yep.
So feel free to send us a message. We can talk rates then.
Yeah.
And then we can help you out virtually, no problem. Mm-hmm. And we're definitely reputable sources. Of course, I'm a little biased.
We're a little biased, but I would agree.
And you don't have to, if you do, deadlifts are, I don't think deadlifts are good bang for your buck when it comes to hypertrophy. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to, I'm emotionally tied to that lift, but I still, after 22 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever gotten bigger just deadlifting.
Yeah.
I don't think deadlifting is.
No, I would actually agree with that. I think from like a total strength standpoint, it'd be one of the more bang for your buck exercises.
Absolutely.
But when we're talking strictly hypertrophy, like I would agree. Like, I mean, if we look at what a deadlift, like the main movers, the main goal of the deadlift, right, is going to be the posterior chain. So the hamstrings, the glutes, the low back, right? Those are the three main kind of areas. I mean, really everything is technically working to some degree, but those are the three main ones. And if we're just talking hypertrophy, like, there's better ways to do it. For example, hamstrings. There's RDLs, right? There's hamstring curls. There's all these other exercises. For glutes, there's also RDLs. There's squats. There's hip bridges, variations, things like that, hip thrusts. And then for low back, there's things like back extensions, right?
RDLs, for those that don't know, that's a Romanian deadlift.
Yes.
That's where you don't go all the way down to the ground.
So basically, think of like deadlift, but you're starting at the top. It's like reverse.
Yep. And I think those are much better for hypertrophic purposes.
Yeah.
My DOMs from 3 sets. Of course, I'm older. I'm still sore from Sunday, and I only did like 135 for like 3 sets of 10.
Yeah, because there's, like, when you're and that's another thing too, like with the deadlift, a lot of times people turn it into a squat.
Like, I love,
right? So it's like, and you can lift more that way, right? So they're like, oh, I'm going to get my chest up and ass down, like almost kind of turn into this like hybrid squat thing, and like I'm going to be able to deadlift more, right?
Yeah.
And that's great if you just want to deadlift a lot of weight, but if your like true goal is hypertrophy in those areas, like learn to do it correctly, learn to hinge properly, and you're going to get that stretch in the hamstrings so much more than you would from like a more upright stance.
And so when you train, just because we're on the hamstrings, training the hamstrings in an RDL or a stiff-legged deadlift trains them in the lengthened position.
Yes.
And let's say you do 3 sets there, then you go over the leg curl machine, which is going to train them in the shortened position. Those are 2 really good options for hypertrophy. And I would always tell people this. If you don't know anything and you have no training history, start at 10 sets per muscle group per week and just see how you feel. Generally, actually, you could probably start at 6 to 8, actually, and then go up from there. And I would do a single progression. So that just means, you add a set, you add weight. I wouldn't add weight. I would add reps first. Reps is the first
I think
thing
this is a good point. I think it's a good emphasis point. Like, how do you progress this, right? Because a lot of times, like, it's just like, let's add more plates. Let's say it's a leg curl, right? Let's just add more plates. But there comes a time where, like, especially untrained or very low training age, when, like, you get to a heavier weight, you really don't know what you're doing. So you're going to get out of position, and you're not getting the optimal, training effect that you would from lowering the weight down, doing every rep perfectly, and probably getting more reps in overall, and you're staying in a good position.
Yeah, I can't emphasize form more.
Yeah.
If you get injured, you're not making...
Exactly.
You're not going to make gains.
Exactly.
So, build your foundation first. Adhere to your program. Use good form. Reach out to people. Watch videos. Spend a little time doing it. I mean, I know everybody wants it now, but... and then I would say start with 8 sets per muscle group per week. If you've never trained before, if you're a female, you could probably start at 10, a smaller female. Women usually can handle 20 to 30% more training volume than men and still recover. And they can also reproduce maximal force more than we can faster. So like if a guy was squatting his 1 RM, 1 rep max, and a woman was squatting your 1 rep max. So you time the guy to be able to squat it again in probably like 10 minutes before he could hit it again. The woman could probably hit it in 3.
Yeah. And usually too, the size of the person affects that too, right?
Yeah.
A bigger person, because they're going to be more load, right? They got to produce more energy, right? More force. They're going to take longer to recover in the short term and the long term versus a tiny person.
Yep.
Because they're just overall the load and stress isn't as high.
But start accumulating data, 8 sets per week.
Yeah.
And if you're recovered and you're not sore, you can add sets.
Yeah. So how would you break that down if someone's like, what does that even mean? Like,
yeah.
So I love the idea of like getting like a little workout journal, right? Whether it's like on like a spreadsheet on your phone or actually like writing it down. Like I think everyone should start with that.
Yes.
Like, well, everyone should be tracking in some way, but like start tracking even if you like don't know what you're doing, right? Because how would you say, so if someone's, going full body split, right? 3 days a week, they're training, right? So how would you break that 8 to 10 sets up? Like if someone's like, how do I do that? What would you do?
I would tell them like, just if they're a total novice, I would tell them just to pick 2 exercises per that muscle group, per that, and then run it. So like, let's say on Monday, when you're training your chest, you pick something for 3 sets or 2 sets, and then you pick another thing for 2 sets. Because we're going to go 8 sets. Maybe you do, what would it be? It would be like 3 or 2.5 sets per muscle group.
Yep.
If you're working out 3 times per week.
Yeah.
You could even do 3, just round it up to 3, so you're at 9.
Yeah.
But pick something that's broad. So like I really like I like starting people on dumbbells because I think once they get a hang of the dumbbell, their depth is really good, their form's good. It's very much easy to transition them over to the barbell.
Yep.
Whereas vice versa, it's not always pretty, especially if they haven't done independent arm work before.
Yep.
So I would say, horizontal press on this day, vertical press on this day, so on and so forth, and just run it. So and start with the muscle group that you want the most. And I would pick on that one first. So if you want bigger arms, it sounds really weird, but train your arms first.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like, that's like kind of a newer thing, but I know there's been some research that shows like whatever you train first is going to get better results. So if like your goal is like to get a better ass, like you better start with like your glutes, right? Like if your goal is arms, start with the arms, right? Yeah, because think of it like your body is like the freshest and like the reserves of energy are the highest when you start. So you want more energy and more of those quote unquote reserve units, right? Going to the glutes if you want to grow your ass, or going to your biceps if you want bigger arms, right?
Yeah, and then hit everything else. Now, obviously, if you train arms first, let's say you hit your triceps first, you're going to take a hit on your chest training, but you're a novice. It doesn't fucking matter. If you show up and you pick up anything as a total novice, like, you're going to get stronger.
At some point when I was starting out, like I kind of felt like I could just look at weights and like imagine myself lifting them, and I would just like get a pump. Like, and then like the next week I would be like, wow, I'm like 2 pounds bigger right now.
I'm so huge. And then when it comes to nutrition, so we'll just go over that training thing one more time. Start between 8 and 10 sets per muscle group per week.
Yeah.
Pick on the muscle you want the most improvement out of. If you were a novice, I wouldn't worry about it because everything's going to grow.
Yeah.
And then train 3 days a week, full body. And again, if you need help with any of this stuff, John and I are available. You can find us on Instagram. John has a website. Mine's currently still under construction because I work really slow.
I want to keep going on this a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like, how would you? Because I know this can still be kind of confusing. Just because, like, looking back, I remember like this was confusing for me, right? How do you know how many reps to do, right? Do you do? Because there would be like the bros in the gym. They're like, no, you got to do like sets 15, get the pump, bro. Right. But then there'd be like the really strong guys, and they'd be like, no, man, do sets of 5, right? Do a 5x5, and you're gonna get strong and gain mass. So what do you recommend to someone new? Like, what's a good kind of rep scheme to pick or to start out with, or do you not care?
No, so my thing is this. If it's a barbell, I would say anywhere is between 5 to 8 repetitions. If you go to dumbbells, you can be anywhere from between 8 and 15, and if you're machine work, I'd say anywhere from 15 to 30.
Okay. So that's a wide range. But how does someone know what to do? Like if I come to you, I'm like, what do I do? Like say I'm going to do dumbbell bench press, right? How do I know if I'm going to be on the low end or the high end? Or again, do you not care?
I'm not going to know the weight right off the get, because I've been super surprised by people both ways.
Of course, not counting weight. Like I don't care what the weight is, but like if someone's just working out on their own, like you're not training them, but like they ask you like, how many reps should I do? Should I do 10? Should I do 15? Should I do 5?
Yeah.
Like,
I would say this. I would say go until it burns a little, and you can still perform reps that are as clean as the first one, even if they're a bit slower on the concentric portion. Concentric portion meaning like moving away from you.
Yeah, I love it.
That is what I would do, because you don't. This is another thing. You don't need to train to failure as a novice. You actually almost never need to train to failure, but especially as a novice. Don't go until your arms feel like they're going to fall off. That is actually going to be more counterproductive than anything else. And then to simplify the nutrition part, if you are skinny, you need to eat more. Simple way to do that: take your body weight and multiply it by 14 to 15, and start there. If you don't gain weight, then you can add 200 calories a day. Okay? And if you're trying to lose weight and still get hypertrophy, I would say multiply your body weight anywhere by like 12. Then go from there. That
is a good starting point.
It's super simple. So, and the math is going to make sense for most of the people that fall within the bell curve. If it doesn't, it's okay. You're a novice. Just adjust. And the more knowledge you can accumulate in your first year, your second year is going to be like a springboard. Your gains might not even slow down because you begin to understand your body better. Like, oh man, if I have white rice 2 hours before I lift, I get a sick pump. And you don't need to chase the pump either. Some days you're not going to have the pump because your body just fluctuates. It's what it's going to do. You're not always going to eat the same time. You're not going to eat the same thing. You're not going to go to bed the same time. You're not going to... Life happens. The main thing is get to the gym, adhere to your program, start with...
And adhere to the calories.
And the calories, And if you've never tracked before and you don't want to track, I got news for you. At some point, you're going to need to learn what a calorie is, and you're going to need to track. So I say... start with tracking 1 day a week. Just 1 day. Scan everything you eat. You don't need to weigh it. Scan it, estimate it, whatever. And you're going to blow your mind about how many calories you are or not.
I think that's important because, like, you know, there's been a lot of pushback on tracking. And I understand in some cases tracking probably isn't the best idea. But if you don't know, if you, like, have never done this before, you have no experience doing it, like you literally have no idea, right? And you could think you are eating absolutely nothing, or you could think you're eating so much. Right? But until you actually do it, you can't see it, right? And there's no way to quantify it. It's just this perceived kind of, I think I eat a lot, or I don't really eat that much, right? And then you actually do it, and then you're like, oh wow, I'm way under eating for my goals, or overeating, or I need to, change things a little bit. And I really liked what you said about the 200 calories at a time, because it simplifies it, right? Don't worry about like exact numbers of carbs, fats, like those kind of things. Like
that's not for a novice.
No, and like I've seen so many people get like caught up on that. Like, they'll come to me and like, I want to put on 20 pounds, like, and they're like skinny, like never lifted a weight in their life, right? And they're like, I'm thinking about eating this many grams of carbs, this many grams of fat, this much protein. What do you think? And it's like, dude, you don't need to focus on that, right?
You can't even see the forest from the trees.
Let's focus on getting you to eat the right calories, right? So and then if that doesn't work, let's bump them up by 200, right? And you have to stick to that. You can't just eat say it's 2,000 calories just for a nice round number, right? 2,000 calories. You can't eat 2,000 one day, but then like 1,800, 1,700, 1,500, I'm back to 2,000, 1,600, and like expect for this to happen. You have to stick to it to find out where you're at, because like I don't care how experienced the nutrition coach is or trainer, right? You don't actually know someone's metabolic rate and what they're burning.
No.
It is there's so many factors that go into it.
Yeah.
So if anybody tells you that, one, it's bullshit.
Total bullshit. Nobody can look at you and know your metabolic rate. Nobody.
It's so dependent on so many different things, and it fluctuates too. But that makes it so much simpler. It's just 200 up or down, or stay the same if it's working.
Yeah, right? If it's working, and you'll know if it's working. And I would say a novice, you could shoot anywhere from a half pound to 1 pound a week.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Yeah.
And depending on how lean you are when you start,
yeah,
part of that might be pretty lean gains.
Yeah.
Now I know when I started lifting weights, I was pretty skinny. So the first year I put on like 15 pounds of muscle, and I have never seen a year like that since. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even eat correctly. I was just, my body was like, all right, we got testosterone, we're young, let's put some slabs on. And I think my best year since then has been 3 pounds.
3 pounds at like the same relative body fat percentage.
Well, I want to talk about body fat percentage. Quarantine's done a number on my
3 pounds of lean mass.
Getting the dad bod. Yeah.
Okay.
And then just be consistent. And then if that training program works, so you put on the muscle tissue, you're getting stronger. You could change the exercises slightly, but you don't have to. If something isn't broke,
don't fix it.
Don't fix it.
Like that's one thing I think that, especially with the Instagram culture, like we talked about this before, but not really in the sense of exercise selection. There's always like these people like posting these funky variations and like crazy stuff and like bands and chains and this implement new thing that came out and like this machine, and like there's still like nothing wrong with a simple squat, like deadlift variation like we talked about earlier, right? A bench press, a row, an overhead press, a lat pull down, right?
I mean, that pretty much sums up what my training program would be.
And it's funny because the more experience you get, the more you go back to the simple things, right? Or at least in my experience.
100%.
Like I started out with the basics on like a 5x5 program, right? If you're not familiar with that, basically like you take the main lifts, the squats, the deadlifts, the bench press, the overhead press. You do 5 sets of 5, right? Pretty simple. It's very like linear as far as progression. All you do is add 5 pounds a week. That's what you do until you can't, and then it's 2.5 pounds, and then from there you can branch out, right?
Yep.
And then like it started to get into all this funky stuff and like these crazy variations and like all this weird stuff, and then like it kind of swung back the other way and back to like the simple things. Just pick a squat, pick a push, pick a pull, right? And stick to it. Try to progress it.
Yeah. And you can make different stuff, but the first thing I would progress is the big lifts.
Yep.
And then you can be like, all right, well, I did, my squats today. Let me train my quadriceps in a shortened position. So you would go to like the leg extension.
Yep.
And I want to say this. I think it's important that you feel especially for hypertrophic purposes, you want to feel the muscle tissue you are training. Yes. If you are doing an exercise and you're just getting tired doing it, you need to pick something different. Yeah.
And it does, that is a skill. It is a skill because a lot of times like someone can be doing something like pretty good, right?
Yeah.
From like a former technique standpoint.
Yeah. And
like you get done with them, or they get done with them, you're like, where'd you feel that? And they're like, I don't know. My back. And like, yeah, no shit. Like, everyone knows that. Where? But they can't tell you, right?
Right.
So, like, that is a skill, and it does come with time, but try to be aware of it. Like, I think that, like, paying attention to that is pretty important. Because if you don't pay attention to it, like, you're just kind of like, oh.
You're not getting any good data for yourself. Because some exercises you're just going to be better at. You're going to feel them more. Some exercises you're just not going to feel them that much.
Yep.
So you have to play a little bit, right? You have to adjust to your body, the lengths of your limbs.
And that's one of those things that comes with experience and time. Like time in the gym, like first year you're not going to know shit. But then eventually you'll realize, oh, this variation of this pull feels better for my body, or this variation of this squat feels better, And I always recommend just starting like with like the things that you can fuck up the least, right?
Yeah.
So like it kind of goes back to the simple concept, but like the things that you have the least chance to fuck up, and you can still like push it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the best like overarching rules when it comes to like picking your exercises. like I don't care what it is, just do something that you're not gonna mess up.
Yes.
and you can progress and overload.
And that's why, especially on the big lifts, when you're just starting out, this is one of the reasons you don't go to failure.
Yep. Yeah.
And you want to be pretty shy of it. Actually, you want to be within. I would say if you're a novice, you want to be within 2 or 3 reps away from failing. Yeah. Just because you don't want to ingrain poor movement mechanics. Because if you learn how to bench improperly and you continue to get stronger in that position, you're going to have some dysfunction down the road. It's going to affect you. You could shoot your shoulders up and not even know it.
And then one day it's just going to hit you like a train.
It is. Like, and if you're constantly good morning your squats, that's where your hips shoot up, your hips shoot back, and your chest falls, and then you have to kind of do a back extension to get the bar up. That's not a good look for most people to go to failure on.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And because the closer to failure you are, the more likely you are to fuck it up.
And get injured.
And who knows, because your body, like under fatigue, is going to go to what it thinks is the most efficient way to overcome the task at hand, right? In the case of a squat, standing up from that squat, not letting that weight crush you, right? So how is it going to do it? Any way it can, by utilizing everything, even though we know from a biomechanics standpoint that's probably not the best idea, right?
Right.
So your body's going to resort to these pathways, right?
Yep.
That like kind of just this pathway that you can't control.
Yeah.
When you get towards fatigue,
yeah.
Right? Like you get anyone under a lot of stress, and you can really see like their motor patterns, right? And like if they have good movement or not, right? Because most likely the train's coming off the tracks, right?
Yes. So that's why I'm not doing this to plug John and I, but it's find somebody.
Yeah.
Even if you just find a YouTube channel or whatever, find something.
Yep.
Because you need to see it modeled, and you need to know how that feels correctly, and then don't get spaced out on the weight. Yep. Yeah. Don't get spaced out on the weight.
Yep. Exactly. And I think a good tool too is video. You know, I mean, everybody's got a camera now, right? Yep. So like, if you're squatting, a good thing to do. You don't have to do it all the time, but like maybe one of your sets, right? Set it up on a side angle so you can see your position, right? And then even if you don't know, compare it to like some of the sources we said, right? And like see what it looks like, right? Yeah. And for example, with a squat, generally you want to see your torso stay more upright, right? You want to hit depth if you can. That's dependent, but like the biggest thing is like not falling forward out of it, right? In your deadlifts or hinge variations, right? You don't want to round the back. You don't want to, get into that forward arch position, putting all that strain on your lower back.
You don't want to look like a rainbow.
Yeah, don't look like that. You want that flat back position.
Yep.
Right? So like videotaping, and that's something that I did a lot
me too.
Starting out. And I mean, I still do it. Like I'll still like record like probably at least one set of like the main lifts a week just to make sure everything looks right, because it's ongoing. It's always ongoing. Even if you've been training as long as we have, like you still have things to work on.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I called you over, this is months ago now, but because my squats weren't feeling well, and you were like, just put a little riser under your heels. And I was like, wow,
that feels amazing.
That feels great.
And I actually want to mention that too on your squats. Like if you're just starting out, elevate your heels.
Big difference.
Like most people are going to get, like their squat is going to look like night and day difference. If you find that you're one of those people that like fall forward in your squat, like take a 5-pound plate, or like if you have a heel wedge at your gym, hopefully you do, but if you don't, take a 5-pound plate, put it under your heels, squat with it, videotape, one without, one with, and see how much more upright you can keep your torso.
Yeah, and don't be worried about using tools like that, especially for hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Like if you're a power lifter, different. But if you're a bodybuilder, which is what we're talking about, hypertrophic standpoint, you want something that's going to make your quads feel like you fucked them up.
Right.
And that will do it.
That will do it.
Yes.
That will do it. And that's a good point too. Like, you know, there's this stupid fucking argument of machines are bad, only free weights, right? Bullshit. One. But machines, like, there's nothing wrong with the machine, and in many cases, especially beginners, like, I would rather have them start out a machine because it goes back to the less chance to fuck it up, you know, the better, right? Versus, like, if I throw you under the same load, whatever the exercise is, same exact weight with a free weight versus, you know, a machine, chances are you have a much better chance of fucking it up with the free weights.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, like, don't be afraid of machines. Get that out of your head. Erase that from your memory where some bro said, oh, get away from the machines. Just use free weights. All those stabilizer muscles.
Yeah. And if you could ask them to point to the stabilizer muscles, it's going to show up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a variety is good.
Yep.
Like I said, again, I'm really cautious to tell people to use the barbell if they've never used the barbell without somebody there.
Yep.
Just because the chance for injury is much greater.
Yep.
You could pancake yourself with...
We've all done it at some point.
Oh, we have. I mean...
You can stick yourself on the bench.
You can stick yourself on the bench or you got to call for
Help!
Spot!
Help!
You know, yeah. And if somebody wants to spot you while you deadlift...
Yeah, get away from them.
Get away from them.
They're creep.
They're creepy.
The only time you need a spotter in a deadlift is if you're in a powerlifting competition, and there might be a chance that you'll pass out. Right? Because that does happen at maximum load. But that isn't you.
Yes. So again, that's strictly for novice purposes.
Yeah.
All the stuff we just talked about. But then if we slide into the intermediate level,
let's talk about that.
which is going to be anywhere from people that have trained from 2 to 6 years. In fact, I think I was pretty much an intermediate for 10 years because I just didn't know.
It's very dependent.
Yeah, it's very dependent. So when it comes to intermediates, you're probably going to need more volume. You're going to be training with more load naturally because you have trained before, and you're going to have better skills.
Yeah.
So you can kind of implement more things.
Yep.
But you still have to remember, you have to adhere to the program. You're probably going to have to train a little more frequently. Mm-hmm. And I always recommend when you get to the intermediate stage, you want to hit your muscle groups twice a week.
Yep.
And again, I every time I start, not every time, but usually when I start a mesocycle for hypertrophy, which is anywhere from 4 to 6 week blocks, they can be 8 week blocks too, depending. But 4 to 6 week blocks. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start anywhere. I know my muscles better now, so I know what the minimum threshold effective is for them. Yeah. Minimum effective dose, exactly. Dr. Mike is your tell. Is for those muscle tissues. So I'll start there, and then depending if I'm doing double, triple, or single, double, or triple progression, which we can go over those later. Yep. I will implement those progression schemes as I move through my mesocycle. Yeah. But generally, you're going to see that you're going to do more reps is the key, and then you add the weight next. So we want volume's a big driver for hypertrophy. So adding a set. So let's say you do a set of 10, you do a set of 8, you do a set of 6. Now, if you take a second and then you add another set of 6, you have dramatically increased the volume. That's a huge
and
increase.
Especially at this level, because now you're lifting heavier weights, right? Yeah. So that load is going to be higher. It's one thing if like you're a total beginner, right? You can get away with that because it's like the load is so much less. Than the weight you're going to be pushing or pulling, on at this level. So like your body's ability to recover from that is going to be taxed much more than initially.
And I still, probably, knowing better now, would not have strict deadlifts in somebody's programming for this, just because there's what you have systematic fatigue, and then you have, oh gosh, I'm losing the word now. Systematic fatigue, and then you have acute fatigue is what I'm going with. Localized fatigue. So, everything is going to pull from a large battery. So just if you imagine your energy source like a battery. Yeah. everything pulls from that battery, but in those batteries, they also have small little sections that they're pulled from. So you imagine a battery that holds 10 sections. Every time you train something, you're draining part of the sections, and you're draining the battery overall. So you're draining it kind of on two different fronts, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you're draining the battery. So you have to remember that when you're fatigued in a fatigued state, you're not going to be able to produce as much force as well. Your reps probably are going to look a little shoddier. So you have to keep all that stuff in mind before you just go adding what I like to call junk volume. What everybody in the industry calls junk volume, not just what I call it. But when I see somebody come in there and they're a natural athlete and they're an intermediate and they do, 30 sets of chest, 6 different exercises, and they can barely put their shirt on during the session, that is overkill for most people. Now, there's probably 2 people on the planet
that can
handle
afford
that
to do that, or they're on gear, right?
Tons of it.
So, and that's important too to realize, because at this point, you're probably a little bit more into things as far as the fitness space, right? And realizing the difference between, the training programs of the biggest guys, right? The elite bodybuilders, is going to be much different than what you're at, right? Because of a lot of different factors, but one of them being the gear you're on, right? The steroids, right? The supplements.
The subs.
The subs.
Special sports supplements.
The special sports supplements.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So pay attention to fatigue and train. You're going to train harder.
Yep.
And then this is where I like to, really, you can implement RIR in for people.
So what is RIR for those that don't know?
Reps in reserve is what it stands for, RIR. And generally, they found in a lot of the literature and research, they're finding that if you train between 4 and 2 reps in reserve, you're going to get a really good stimulus, and you don't kill yourself.
Yeah, it's that fine line, right? Of how do I push that threshold, the threshold that I need to reach to get the stimulus to signal growth, right? We need to reach that threshold, go a little bit beyond it, but we can't go too far, right? We don't want to redline it, right? So if you think of it like a car, right? You need to get to a point, to go fast, right? To go really fast, to reach a good speed, right? You have to, those RPMs have to get to a certain point, right? But you can't redline it, right? Because the engine can't take that, right?
Yeah.
Can't recover from that, right? So it's the same with our body. We have to reach that certain threshold, push it a little bit past because we need overload, right, to stimulate the growth, but not go too far where it wrecks us and actually sets us back. So it's just like dance. It's just fine line of forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Not way forward and then fall way back.
Yeah. So if you're going to take, you can work your way. So what I like to do, and I learned this from my coach, Steve Hall at Revive Stronger. 2 things. 1, you're never too old or know too much to have a coach.
Yes.
And 2, work yourself into an RIR. So week 1, you're 4 reps from failure. Week 2, you're 3 reps from failure. Week 3, you're 2 reps from failure. Week 4, you're 1 rep to failure. And then if you push it to week 5, you want to do an overreach, you can take some of the sets to failure, but not all of them. So I would say your last set you can take to failure. I still wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because I know me and my age and how long I've been training and my previous injuries that I'm much more likely to get injured during a week where I'm taking it to 0.
Yeah.
Or past.
Yeah.
Right. And if somebody comes over and you let's say you fail on a bench press, and somebody comes over and they're 2 more, and they're kind of giving you an assistance. Fuck that.
Yeah. No.
You don't need
Rack
that.
it.
Rack it. You do not
Rack
need
it.
that.
Yeah, stick to your plan.
Going beyond failure. Nah, I can't get into that. Maybe there's times when it's appropriate, but I just think for most people it's not. But
yeah, for most people, right? I think that's the important part. And it kind of goes back to the risk versus reward. Right? Yeah. We've talked about this with body fat percentage, how much do you want to give up to reach this body fat percentage, whether it's abs or not abs, right?
Yeah.
In your lifestyle, how much do you want to give up, right? How much do you want to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with training, right? If your goal is to be to win the Arnold Classic, right? That's going to be much different then like just,
You want to look good on the beach.
you want to look good on the beach, get your arms a little bit bigger, get your chest, a little pumped.
To stick out over your
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
So like it's a very different thing that like if someone wants to take it there, then okay, then they're gonna push things a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
But most people, if that's not your goal, you don't have to go there, right?
Yeah, and I think if you're an intermediate trainer, you can do the same thing that I still do. Anywhere from 4 to 1 reps RIR.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, and if you don't like training at that safe, you could always be at 2.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't train all the time there, but some people can survive that. I personally can't survive that.
Yeah.
And then you should know when you're an intermediate trainer what your minimum effective volume is.
Yeah, because by that time you've had enough years under your belt to like really know. Okay, when I tried this, I saw pretty good gains, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good growth, right? When I tried this, it was like too much or not enough, right? So by then you should, as long as you built that base and you've tracked things, right? You're not just like throwing shit at the wall and hope it sticks the whole time, the whole 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. You should know by then.
Because if you want to be progressing as an intermediate lifter, you cannot just throw shit at a wall.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You have to have a strategic plan in place. And generally, for people that I work with that are that want hypertrophy, there's a 3-month section that we discussed before they start section 1 because we were leaning them into different phases of training. And when you become an intermediate, you're going to have different phases of training. So you're going to have what my coach likes to call a primer phase, where it's a little heavier, the reps are a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have, more of a volume phase where you pick up volume, whether it's sets, reps, whatever. But there is some progression with weights as long as you were at the top of the rep range for whatever. And
and there's like a million different models of progression, right? I mean, there are so
time under tension, less rest periods,
right?
Yeah.
And even from a standpoint of like periodization, right? There's so many different models, and all of them have been proven to work to some extent, right? So like a lot of times there's a lot of argument of like linear versus undulating, or conjugate versus this, or there's a million different ways to skin the cat, right? So pick one of them that like suits like the amount of days you can train, your goals, right, and stick to it, adhere to it, right? And over time, once you reach those higher levels, you'll understand what works best for you.
Yeah. Right. And I don't even think we really need to cover the advanced people because they already know they're.
Yeah, we don't have to tell them.
They already know kind of what they're doing and stuff like that. So now we can talk a little bit more about the nutrition a little more in depth.
Yeah.
And I really don't think. I hate the splits that I see. Like your body type doesn't matter. Like you're where they say 40% this, 30%.
Oh, like carbs,
whatever.
protein, fat, percentage, macros.
I would say just eat.
Yeah.
And then see where it falls. Sometimes you might be like, wow, I had a really good performance. I wonder what happened. You go back and you kind of look. You don't need to track it all, but if you go back and you look at a day, you'd be like, wow, okay, this is what I ate before. This is what I ate the day of. I had a really good session here. I felt really good.
Yeah.
Generally, for me, it's just more caffeine. Does nothing to do with what I'm eating, just what I'm drinking.
Fun fact, so Costco has these cold brew coffees, like pre-made in a can.
Yeah.
Right? And I love these things. I drink one every morning, right?
Oh!
They had to pull them off the shelves because the FDA, made them, and because their caffeine amount is mislabeled. So I don't know what extent they make them pull the shelves off. Must be significant. Yeah. And there was 225 milligrams in a can.
How big were they?
Small cans.
4 ounce, like an 8 ounce?
Probably 6 I would say. So there was 225 and 6 ounces, and it was mislabeled. It was more than that. And so I'm like, well, no wonder why. When I run out of it, I feel like shit.
To be at least 10% more.
So they made them pull it off the shelves, reformulate their cans, or change their formula in the drink before they can resell it.
So what John's saying, if you have any of those things on and you haven't tapped into your cold brews, John will buy them illegally. No,
yes, I will. I am in the market for the black market cold brews.
Yeah.
I should just make it myself again. I'm just too lazy.
Creatine's a wonderful thing. We talked about this in the last podcast. I think everybody really should be on it, from elderly to the young to the advanced to novice to anybody in between can benefit from creatine. Mm-hmm. So especially if you're trying to put on size, creatine's your bread and butter. Protein, make it super simple. So super simple. Take your body weight, multiply it by 1. Shoot for those many grams, okay? If you're older, I will give you more recommendations, but you can reach out for me on Instagram for stuff like that. But I guess I can cover some of it here. If you're 30 plus, I would say multiply your body weight by 1.2. Mm-hmm. And then if you're 40 plus, I'd say 1.3. 50 plus, you can probably keep it at like 1.3. Mm-hmm. But you have to have more protein as you get older because you're not utilizing it like you did when you were younger. Things kind of slow down. So carbs and fats, let them fall where they may. I mean, seriously, be your own test subject. In the first year, really, if you're writing things down, you're keeping somewhat track of things, you're really going to figure out how to dial things in for you. And your second year in the gym is going to be amazing.
Yeah. And the carbs and fat, like, don't try to go like super low carb if you're bad idea. Like, I've seen a lot of people try this, like, because it's a very popular thing, different variations of low carb diets, and they're trying to gain mass. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but like, so don't go to the extremes of like no carbs or no fat. Like, just keep it moderate, and like, you'll see what works best for you. Like myself, I prefer a higher carb, a little bit lower fat diet. And most people, I would say, actually end up towards that. Towards that end once they kind of learn and experiment and try things. I do know a few people that like a little bit higher fat. But, most people are going to go higher carb, but it's just like finding what works for you and not going to extremes.
Man, that's why it's so easy to track nowadays. You just scan things on your phone.
Easy.
It's so easy to track.
Yeah. What do you use to track? What app?
I have My Macros Plus. I really like that one, but RP's app was really good. Renaissance Periodization's diet app was very, very good.
Okay.
Lane Norton also has a service, or did have a service. I think he's coming out with a new one because he lost Avatar Nutrition in the divorce.
I had that
but
for a
Avatar Nutrition was good too.
That was good because it adjusted.
Yeah, it adjusted, but man. It's not hard to gain size if you're a novice, or even if you're intermediate that just hasn't been doing it right for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because you can stumble into being intermediate. That's what I did.
Like most of us did.
After 10 years of banging my head in the wall and finally putting a hole in it, I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. And then I kind of went from there. So, again, any questions that you guys have, reach out to us on YouTube, Instagram. John's got a website, johnpappfitness.com. johnpapp.fitness. Okay. Anything else we should cover? Oh, you need sleep?
Sleep, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah, you need rest.
You need rest, right? Whatever your body whatever your goal is in general, but just speaking to body composition, whether it's weight loss or, in this case, mass gain, sleep is very important. Sleep is very important, and especially the harder you're training and the higher the load is, right? The higher that total volume is, the more you're going to need it, right? So that's where you'll learn too on your own, kind of based on like your lifestyle, right? If you work weird shifts, like if you like work in a hospital or something and you've got these weird night shifts or something, like you're gonna learn pretty quickly how important sleep is when it comes to these things, right?
Yeah.
And you'll learn to adjust that yourself. But, sleep is very, very, very important. Just from like a general health standpoint, like I think that is honestly one of the most underrated things we can do and control very easily, right? In the grand scheme of things, right? It's a simple thing.
Yeah.
And I know life is crazy and busy, but like you have to prioritize sleep.
Have to.
You can't. I know everybody likes to say, "Oh, I feel fine on 4 hours sleep." Bullshit.
Try and get 8 though. If you get 8, you're gonna be like, I could take over the world,
right? And you might just like have been getting 4 hours of sleep for years, but like, so that is like your baseline, and you think you feel fine, But like I'm telling you, you are gonna feel a million times better. Your general health is gonna be better, right? And whatever your goals are, you're going to reach them faster.
Yep, you gotta sleep. So general recommendation is 7 to 9 hours, depending on your age and your activity level. But man, I think it'd be great to get 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. I just don't know the last time I've done that.
Yeah.
7, 8 is usually where I'm at.
Yep.
And sometimes 6. But I'm working on that. And you have, or you're not wearing it right now.
Yeah, I lost the charger actually.
Oh, but you were doing the
Whoop. Yeah, so Whoop band, really cool thing. It's basically like a little Fitbit looking thing, right? Just a little strap you wear on your wrist.
Yeah.
But much better than Fitbit. And it tracks like everything as far as your heart rate 24/7, right? Your respiratory rate, so your breathing, right? It tracks your something called heart rate variability, which is basically the time between beats. It tracks that. It tracks activity. But then the biggest thing for me, at least, is it tracks your sleep, right? Because based on your respiratory rate, your heart rate, it can tell when you're sleeping, when you're awake, and when you're sleeping, it can also tell what stage of sleep you're in, right? So because in the different stages of sleep, your heart rate is either going to slow down or speed up, right? And your respiratory rate as well. So it's going to be able to tell where you're at there and gives you like totals, right? So then you can use that data to, you know, manipulate things in your habits and routines and just how you go about sleeping to improve. Like for myself, one of the biggest things was a sleep mask, right? Because even though we tried to keep our room like as dark as we could, there's still residual light coming in, right?
Oh, you're talking, yeah, okay.
And what a sleep mask does, so it just blacks it out, right?
Yeah.
An eye mask, right?
Okay.
So just like a pitch black eye mask thing, so even if your eyes are open, you can't see a thing, right? And then it doesn't allow that residual light to come in. And that was like a game changer.
Was it really?
Game changer, yeah.
Oh.
And then another thing is the temperature of the room. Cooler is better for sleep. You're going to sleep better and more soundly, right, with a cooler room. So turn that AC up, man.
Yeah.
And in the winter, turn that heat down.
Turn the heat down, open the window.
We sleep at 62 degrees, and like
that's fantastic.
it is with a fan on, and it is amazing.
I wish I could get Chelsea to go that cold. If it's at 66, she's like, I'm freezing. It's today, no joke. I don't know how warm it is today in Michigan, but it is warm. And she was in winter pants and a long sleeve, and she's like, I'm cold. I can see that. And I mean, our apartment's at like 72, so I'm sweating bullets.
Oh yeah, you're like sweating all day, like shorts, your shirt off.
It's just like, oh man, it's a ton. But yeah, sleep cold. Oh man, sleep cold, sleep deep.
Yes,
beautiful. And then, like John said, get rid of all the light that you can.
Big thing, and like even like it sounds stupid, but like little like night lights and stuff like that, like not bright lights, or even like things that are like if you have something plugged in and it has like a little red light or green light, blue light, right? And actually the color depends, but like even those things can actually stimulate things in your brain subconsciously that will kind of upregulate things, and like your body's like, all right, let's go. You know, it's not the same as like walking out in the middle of the day, but it can actually keep things like awake.
Yeah.
More, so you won't get as much deep sleep.
Yeah.
Right. So like eliminating those.
And I think in this day and age, it's important that you turn off your notifications at night.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Do not disturb. I do not disturb by like 8:30 at night.
It's just leave your phone alone.
Yep.
You know, the rule at our house is you're off the phone an hour before bed.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then you're not allowed to check social media until you're 2 hours into the day.
Okay.
So
that's cool.
That has been great. I can't say I stick to it all the time, but I'm sticking to it much more now than I was. And my life has actually
improved.
It seems better.
I will say, and like another thing too, like especially right now, everything's so like, you know, divisive arguments all over social media, right?
Divisive, yeah.
Regardless of where you stand, I think we can all agree that there's like a lot of pissed off people and a lot of like stress-inducing things, right?
Yes.
Because you probably have an opinion one way or another, right? And like one of those things is like stay off like the bullshit news articles and Facebook arguments, like, but especially before bed. Like
you're not going to change somebody's mind.
Like you're not going to change somebody's mind, but like just for your own like health and like
well-being.
sleep quality, like don't ramp yourself up right before bed.
Yeah.
And then like try to go to sleep. Like I know myself just from personal experience, like especially with everything that's been going on, like, you know, not being able to work traditionally in the gym, like all these things, like it's been pretty stressful, especially when things were first happening. And like I would read these articles at night, like laying in bed, and then like my mind's racing. Yep. And it would like affect things like the next morning. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, so like control what you can control. Right?
Yes. And that's one of the things you can definitely control is your social media exposure.
Exactly.
I love that my phone keeps track of how much time I'm on social media. Although it's thrown off because the Joe Rogan podcast.
That's the only problem with those, because like it'll say like you had 7 hours on your phone, but like half the time like I was like training clients virtually, or I had like Spotify on in the background and my screen was just on, or like I was listening to podcasts in the car, and it like counts that as screen time. But it does break it down from like social media. And,
okay, yeah, I think I've seen that.
Yeah.
Maybe I haven't really.
If you really look at it, and you can lock yourself out of apps too, even though you can just hit ignore, which
I like it. There's a lot of different ways, but keep your and then dealing with your stress. So that's kind of ties in with the sleep thing. Is you got to find an outlet for your stress. I think working out's a great outlet for my stress.
Works for you.
Do something that doesn't hurt anyone.
Unless it's like, you know, MMA, boxing. Like,
right, but still, you shouldn't be hurting people. You should be
not hurting.
You should be sparring, yeah. But social media, find some things, find an outlet for your stress. Get a hobby.
What are your hobbies?
I like to build things shittily.
Okay.
I don't do well.
What kind of things? Like furniture shit? Or like
well, I made that one
metalwork
thing.
Or
I made a chair hang over for our deck.
Okay.
That I put the chairs on.
Okay.
And that lasted about 2 weeks before it fell apart. But it was a prototype.
But it
had never been built before in the history of man. And I just happened to find one way it didn't work after 2 weeks. So I think with some corrections and a lever arm, I think I could definitely make that work. So I like that. And video games are like a really... I enjoy them. Yeah. And I know they're like a do-nothing kind of activity.
But sometimes you need those do-nothing activities.
Just turn my mind off and I just go smash things or shoot things or whatever.
To me, like...
Keep going, it's fine.
We lost camera on that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's alright. We're good.
Why it took that off the screen.
We're okay.
I probably ran out of battery, or whatever. Anyways, everyone's like, oh, video games are so bad. Like, okay, but you probably, you're probably watching movies at some point, or stupid shows, right? Do you like The Office? Because that's pretty pointless too, right? And I fucking love The Office, right? Or like, do you like read fiction books? Do you like Harry Potter books?
I love fiction books.
Like, okay, so that's pretty useless too. What's that gonna do? But you need something like that.
You need something.
Like, you can't like have like, I know I've fallen into this before, where like it's like all I ever do is like read about training or like self-help type stuff, like motivational things, self-improvement, right? And it's like you get into this weird headspace even if you do too much of that, right? So you need this like...
You need kind of a nothing activity.
You need a nothing activity, whatever it is for you.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything. I do like to write as well, but I don't do that as often as I should, just because I'm always like, I go back and reread the 200 words that I wrote, and I'm like, this is complete garbage. Might as well just play video games. But I think we covered that pretty well.
I think we did, yeah.
And, man, again, I know I said this 3 other times, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. We can cover more stuff in depth, and we can also ask questions, answer questions while we do this. We'd love to get some. So, unfortunately, nobody's asked me questions yet, except for my mother. She just wants to know if I'm doing steroids, and she thinks creatine steroids. You doing them steroids? But
you're on the juice.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Thank you. Good stuff.
Yeah, hour? Perfect.
Pretty solid right there.
That was a good hour.
Not bad at all.
This guy's
No kidding. It didn't save that at all.
It's okay.
What the fuck?
This is episode 8,
Wait.
right?
No, we didn't. Okay, I think I'm an hour and 5 minutes.
I wonder if it can you airdrop that?
I can try. It might take a long ass time.
What else can we do with it? Can you upload it to...
Hey, my bar was still there. Fuck yeah.
It was?
Yeah, it's on the porch.
Ah, shit!
September 9th. Whoop whoop, Adam said. What does that mean?
We're opening?